Welcome back to another episode of Character Modeling with me, Steve Moore. This session, we're going to continue our journey into the texture process for the characters from the first season of Telltale's The Walking Dead. And this time, we're going to look at the line art, or inking as I refer to it. Here we are back in the old Photoshop. If you watched the last episode, I'm using the original Photoshop just to be kind of true to the spirit of this demonstration. We're looking at kind of how did we make the characters for Walking Dead Season 1 back in 2011. And CS1, which is what we're looking at, has a 3D paint feature where you can literally paint on the model. So here we are. This is the paint layer where we left off. We've got our, basic color and our baked lighting and a little bit of paint over. And so now we're going to look at the inking. So I've set up a group here for inking, and I'm going to set that to multiply, right? So everything I do within this group is going to be multiplied, and I've got just a white fill to start. I'm going to make another layer, and let's use the black, nice black color. I go up to my brush settings and make sure I've got the shape dynamics on, pen pressures on, and transfer. I've got the opacity gesture, pen pressure for opacity, and flow. And then I'm just going to pick a nice hard edge shape, and that should give me a line with some, like a inky looking line. So to begin, I'm actually going to turn off our paint layer, and we're just looking at the original baked lighting before the filters here. And this is what I'm going to use as my guide for inking. So I'll ink on the flattened page as well as the 3D model. I'll just start here. So let's see. So the thing is, the first thing I typically do is I think they used to call it spotting your blacks. Now I'm going to find the cavities and the overhanging edges, and I'm going to just start by emphasizing those. So these will almost act as landmarks, right? Now, my setup is not that sophisticated. A more professional concept artist would have things set up so that they have more control over their line weight just with pressure. But even when I was inking I worked on comic books with old school inking. I literally inked comic books, mostly my own, but nonetheless I used to do the same thing when I was inking my comic books. I would build the lines up. I used ballpoint pens. Like, you're supposed to have like fancy quill pens and India ink and stuff, but I used ballpoint pens for like really thin lines because you did have some control. Like the pressure you put on the pen would literally affect the weight of the line. And then I did end up going to Japantown. I'm living in California, so Japantown, LA, and San Francisco, and I did purchase some really fancy Japanese pens, which I loved. I developed a fetish for pens. I loved old art stores, and you go in there and it's just all this papers. Oh man, papers. Love paper. But anyway, so here we go. So sorry, so I'm kind of just putting in some kind of landmarks and stuff, and because it's a zombie, I'm thinking, I'm going to emphasize all the cracks and crevices. So texture, line can indicate light direction. It can indicate silhouettes, the shape of something, and it can also indicate texture. So I can start to kind of emphasize a lot of these cracks and crevices. I'm going to play this stuff up. And so she's got really crazy. I know I'm calling her a she, so she's a she. All right, she's a she from now on. You get to be a girl. Congratulations. So that's, I'm gonna, so just, yeah, you know, like artists, I don't know, I always cock my head, I tilt my head when I'm looking at stuff. I don't know. I think it's a way, it's a subconscious way of getting a different angle on it, you know, just like literally a different perspective on something helps you see things better. So I think around her nasal fold, this is her nasal fold here. This is going to be a nice heavy line, right? Like a nice cavity. So I'm gonna make a nice heavy line around there. And I think I'll save that. Control save. Switch to the model now. And let's zoom up here a little bit. I'm using the camera rotate tool. It's a bit chuggy. I just wanted to see it in 3D a little bit. It helps, obviously. Making a layer. So we talked about this in the previous episode. This is old Photoshop. It's an old machine. It's slow and clunky. So therefore, I'm going to paint on this layer in the viewport, and then I'm going to drop it down when I'm comfortable with it. And hopefully, this is kind of, things are starting to come back to me. This is one of my little, what do you call them? You know, we all have like our generic kind of signatures almost, you know, when you're drawing, you know, how do you draw a foot? How do you draw a hand? The way I'm kind of put this, you know, spot this black and then have a secondary kind of edge coming off of it. That was something that's a bit of a habit of mine, a bit of a trope, you could say. And just while I'm in here now, some of the stuff when I drop it's going to kind of turn into a big black smudge. That's okay, you know, it's just the nature of this approach. Here's another trope. So I'm going to put, it's zombies, so I'm going to put more texture in the zombies. So I might actually do a little cross hatching off of this cavity here. I see another nice opportunity for that. And of course, teeth. That's a really, now the trick is you don't want to outline everything, right? So you're always thinking about where is the light coming from, and any chance you have to just kind of let the eye, the viewer's kind of mind fill in the blanks is a good thing to seize. So I'm emphasizing the cavities that are facing away from the light, or you know, even though the light will move, you know, it's kind of like life. You have to have an opinion, right? You have to get off the fence and say, okay, this is where I'm going to stand on this. So I'm going to stand on this light being kind of overall from the top. And I'm just going to really overlapping form there. I loved anytime I have an overlapping form, I'll kind of emphasize it a little bit. You can see that. The line of her lips. I won't, this I'll keep kind of thin because it's moving towards the light. So I'm going to keep that thin and emphasize this and maybe put a little indication of texture on the teeth, you know. And this texture should originate from the cavities, you know. So if you could literally, you know, if you think about substance and maybe, you know, you apply a wood grain to something. And so if you could indicate wood with line, and the trick, if you really want bonus points, what you do is as the wood moves into the light, you fade out the texture. And so the texture becomes a gradient. So it's helping to model as well as kind of define the material. So I'll put nice black in her mouth later. So I feel like I want to just make sure. So here, you know, here I'm kind of breaking the line up, giving it some texture, right? So, and I am following, of course, I'm following the modeled detail. So this is where it all kind of came together, right? You do have an underlying modeled high res data, and that is complemented by the texture, the paint, the color, and the ink line should complement all that. You don't want it doesn't work if you do like something completely different with your inking that contradicts the model. So that's the approach here. The inking line should complement the high res data. And as you can see, it's lost a little bit of resolution when I dropped it down there. But not too bad. And I'll just, I can go back now and start cleaning that up a bit. I tend to like make a lot of layers and then collapse them later. So back in this 2D viewport, now I've got something to kind of work from. It's a little clearer. I can sharpen this up. So this, this did take a bit of time. But if you're like me, I enjoy the process. Except when it's 10 o'clock at night and the thing's due tomorrow, then that's a different story. But for the most part, I do enjoy the process of making art. So I'm looking for looking for those cavities to emphasize. I'm going to try and focus on all the major landmarks. Sometimes I am just kind of tracing the lighting data and just emphasizing it. So yeah, there's ways that you could automate this, but I think sometimes the the hand drawn things have an appeal to them, that you lose when you overly automate things. So that would be my argument for why it was done this way. I did kind of automate things as you saw last. So the filters, for example, that would be a script that I would run. I gave to my colleagues and to when they were working on characters. When more people came onto the project, I would share my scripts, and so that all the filters and stuff was automated, and the Z-Link stuff was automated, in ZBrush to Photoshop. Anyway, so let's hit these blacks. We're gonna make some nice solid blacks. I think I'll turn off the paint. Yeah, okay. So now, that to me should be a nice black there. That's going to be. Oh, here's a trick. So I've got something that looks really cool is, and this might be a bit of an optical illusion here, but you've got a big shadow shape, and then maybe you've got a pipe, and because the pipe's raised, you can tell the observer that the pipe is higher than, say, the surrounding surface by the pipe will kind of cut into that black shape, so the light will hit the pipe a little further in, so here you've got, this is not really a pipe, but kind of that idea there. Anyway, so this is going to be, it's going to be a nice big black shape there. I'm just going to sketch it, right? Just a little sketch. And in comic books, they would literally use an X sometimes. They would just kind of make a big black shape and go X, that's going to be black. Although I don't think that should be black. So I'll leave that. Could be more of a kind of a crosshatchy deal like that. I didn't actually do much crosshatches like that. I didn't actually use crosshatches. I used kind of just horizontal lines closer or further apart, thicker. Just and that was supposed to be kind of a general rule to keep things consistent. So because you had multiple, at the end of the day, you have multiple artists working on this. I started out as kind of the sole character artist during pre-production. We got a few characters, Lee and Clementine, and a couple of zombies. I made a zombie kit, like a whole bunch of zombies. And then Megan Gritzfield, she came on and started making characters, and we hired more people, and the rest is history. Now, this is where it gets a bit weird. So the original season 1, we did not have outlines. I've noticed that they've re-released the game, and in subsequent releases, they have kind of upped the graphics, they've upped the resolution, And I'm using white to clean this line up, but that's okay. When I drop it, that'll just basically become like a negative. Um, yeah, so the latest version of Walking Dead season one does have some outlines, it appears. I wasn't part of that, but yeah, it looks like they went back and retroactively kind of upped the res on things, adding a little bit of texture here. So that'd be a good opportunity for some cross hatching. Of course, you don't want to get too crazy with the cross hatching because remember, it's also going to have modeling in the color, right? So the line art doesn't have to be that significant because the color is going to take care of quite a bit of it. It's more just a suggestion, and here, but an obvious recess like this, that's definitely a opportunity for some nice solid blacks. And inking comic books, that's what economy of line. Back in the day, technology limited you from using a lot of values and color, so things tended to be very chiaroscuro, especially the American comic books like the Marvel and DC. They used a lot of solid blacks. I grew up on, well, I loved Disney. I loved like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. But I grew up on the French comic books too, like Tintin and Asterix, even the Smurfs, Um, and then as a teenager, I got into the Japanese manga, which tended to have a much more refined, uh, elegant line. Like I feel like the Japanese stuff uses less thick and thin, and but very very elegant lines. I'm kind of getting in the groove, so I haven't done this stuff for a while, and now it's kind of coming back to me. I'll keep going. I think what I'm going to do is just do like an overall pass real quick and and then clean it up a bit, and double up on it like we did earlier just to give the line a bit more weight. So here's a good opportunity right here for a nice solid black in with the inside of the ear. I feel like that's a good opportunity there. So I am working pretty, well, me anyway, pretty fast and loose on this. But that was I think with a zombie, like that was the thing. Like with Clementine, I was more like Japanese refined, elegant lines, right? Because she's a young kid, and I wanted to feel elegant and soft. And with the zombies, I'd get much more sketchy and quick and loose because they're they're gritty and aggressive, so aggressive lines I want, and you get that with speed. Aggression and speed to me seem to go kind of hand in hand. So if you want fast, aggressive lines, work quickly. I'm actually putting probably a lot more blacks than I used to, but things evolve, right? We all evolve, and I'm using this as an opportunity to experiment too. So I'm showing you what I did back in the day. At the same time, I'm evolving a little bit here. As I mentioned, the inspiration for the game was the comic book, and to that end, I I looked at the comic books for the Walking Dead comic books for inspiration, and particularly the first issue. And this image, this is, I believe, from the first issue. I'm sorry, I don't have a high res version of it, but when I came to the zombies, this was my main source of inspiration. I love this image. It's got so much texture. So yeah, when I was texturing my zombies, I was looking at this page a lot. One of the things I love about it is all the flies. Like there's just flies everywhere, and I thought that was such a cool detail. Look at this. I mean, it is a little bit fuzzy, but there's like maggots and flies and oh, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. That's one of the details I wanted to add to the game that never happened. I did suggest it, but it was that we should have ambient fly noises, like you should hear like Jaws, you should hear the flies before you see the zombies, and just have flies buzzing around like little particle effects, I would have been brilliant. Um, but didn't happen in the old game. I don't know. Anyway, here we go. So I'm looking for some ways to wrap this up quickly to cheat, basically. So I do want to paint out this detail on the back of her ear and finish just putting some blacks real quick and her eye, right? So going to the texture map here, I've grabbed the UVs as a guide, and I'm going to just start by putting some nice big solid blacks. Like, even though I painted the inside of her mouth, you know what? I'm just going to make it a big black shape because that, it graphic. It needs to be graphic. So I just grab that and make it black. There we go. Black. Oh, the other thing too is just the texture, the little, yeah, it's a bit low res, but there's a lot of ink, like just like little suggestions of divots and stuff and texture in the zombies here that I would like to capture. So just kind of sometimes some random little divots. Just kind of adding some noise. Crosshatch. Broke my rule. You can see I'm riffing off some of the kind of the brushy strokes from the filters a bit, just using that as a seed, you could say, in computer talk. It's a seed. I am more machine now than man. So these are kind of like the creases in the neck. And I'm deliberately jerking my hand, just kind of giving a little bit of a aggression, like a grungy line. Let's call it a grungy line. And of course, with skin, you get these creases that like branch. So this is kind of a language for a divot, like like if the light's coming from the top, then you get like a crescent of shadow there. That's why I do that. But then you end up doing it super fast, and it becomes a um, a shorthand. It doesn't. It's weird, right? It's not really well illustrated the way I'm doing it. I'm just doing it real quick. It just gives you the impression of something. I'm just going to put some miscellaneous dots, just like texture, you know. And when you're really sketchy, it's okay to double up on the lines too. That was the quality of the Walking Dead. The style was not super clean, It's sketchy and loose. Like even going back, I don't have a good example. There's no frames in this no panel lines, but the panel lines were like not rigid and straight. In at least in some of the examples I was looking at just recently, they're much more organic, which I really like. One of my favorite comic books as a kid was Foot Rot Flats. This is a New Zealand comic, um, and that was that had very organic, sketchy lines, a lot like The Walking Dead lines. And I'm going to take this opportunity to merge these layers, set to multiply, just like we did before. I'm going to duplicate that just to emphasize it, right? And I think I'm just going to switch from inking for a moment and clean up the back of that ear. And now just sampling the outside area. Oopsie, should be alternate to sample. That's right. My keyboard, the Alt key doesn't work on the right side, so I have to use the left side. So I have to cross my arms in this weird manner. It's awkward. I should get a new keyboard. As I get older, I become a real tightwad. I don't spend money unless I have no choice, unless it's ice cream, in which case I'll just throw it down. I don't care. But yeah, penny wise and dollar stupid, as they say. So just yeah, just and I'm as I'm throwing down this color, you can see I'm just doing it in blobs to kind of go with the general kind of watercolor filter, dry brush filter effect, so that you know so it's got that same kind of graphic, kind of gouache painting, rough look to it. Merge down. There we go. That didn't take much. Now, one thing I would do too is, at least if I really want to get hardcore on this, is you've got a lot of the effect of reflected light here, which is kind of cool from the baked lighting. You can see. So the there's some nice kind of bounced lighting effects, but I think to make it a little bit more graphic and simple, I'm going to subdue the ones on away from the light. So I think just to make the read a little bit cleaner. But I'll just finish up with this ear. Again, just as I'm doing this demo, I'll be honest, I'm seeing areas where I would change my old approach. With a few more years, a little wiser. Um, so for this reflected light, I think I'm just going to use the AO map just to quickly tone it down. And now it's time to cheat. Time to cheat. Get this thing done. Here we go. I am going to grab the old AO map, turn that to normal, and as always, it's a nice AO map. Lots of nice soft values. Okay, so make a copy as always, and I'm going to run those filters on it. So artistic, first one, dry brush, I believe. Brush size, everything looks good enough. And then through the watercolor pass, artistic, watercolor, detail, small texture. And then finally, because it's a little bit janky at the edges, I'm going to blur it just a bit. Actually, I'll go to the Gaussian blur because it gives you the option to kind of control the edges. That's too much. Just a little, just enough there. Cool. That can go on top of the paint layer and multiply. Inks on top of that. All right, so with the AO map at 100%, I'm kind of happy with it's a bit more, the read's a bit better. It's not so busy. The texture might be a little bit too dark. I'll drop it, take it from 100 to 75 as a compromise, and I'm going to kind of modulate it just a little bit here. So we'll add a layer mask, and I can do this in the texture, the UV viewport, the unwrapped viewport here. I'm just gonna want to pop this area here. So I'm just painting out the AO map around here. See what that gives us. Yeah, that's all right, eh? So still have the effect of the AO map and just kind of dulling down those reflected areas. There you go. So I'm reasonably happy with that. For a demo, I think that's all right. I think, could do some more inking around the neckline here, but good enough. You get the idea, right? So there she is. Let's take a look at her in Maya with some lighting and normal maps. And yeah. Well, I hope you had as much fun as I did. And if you watched this far, 3 gold stars for you. I know I can ramble on a bit. So, in return, I'll leave you with a dad joke. Why don't zombies eat clowns? Because they taste funny. Until next time, happy modeling. Ciao.